Stage 1, pressing for flight. Launch reactor on countdown 1. We are go for launch.
Yes, sir. Reading you loud and clear. Clear. The clock has started.
The clock has started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
And welcome to Pressing for Flight, live from the Space Coast, where the schedule never holds.
We fancy now.
Yeah. How'd y'all like that intro? I just made it last week.
Badass.
Listen, it's super cool being on the opposite end of that intro now.
Yeah.
I just gotta say that. That's
Oh,
pretty
yeah?
neat. Yeah.
I think everybody saw only a little bit of the intro, by the way, Steve-O.
Why is that?
Because by the time the live feed started, they only got like maybe a quarter of the intro.
No, it was running the whole time. I mean,
No, I played it all. I see it.
Yeah,
It's in the back
yeah,
there.
it
Did
was-
you?
mm.
It was
If
one
you
of the
if you waited
harder
for
you.
if you waited for the notification to hit it, then yeah, you probably missed it. But there were people in chat that got to see it.
Well, hope y'all liked it.
Yeah.
Whale.
So on the left side of your screen, you'll see the launch that we all watched on Sunday, and that we were so pumped about last week, and it actually finally launched. Didn't go up on Saturday like we had hoped. Wait, Saturday? What was the first day? It was Saturday. Yeah.
Saturday.
Nothing is going up on time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Weather is not looking good for Starlink. It wasn't good for in-flight abort, and now the wet dress rehearsal didn't go perfect for solar orbiter. I don't know. Well, the schedule never holds. That's why I say it. So I am your host, Steve. I have the other Steve, Mr. Kegel, over here next to me here.
I'm
And
the other Steve.
I got Matt here, the founder of Next Horizon Spaceflight, who Kegel and I both shoot for. And our guest tonight, the very talented Brandon Wynn, the genius behind Hover Slam. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, guys.
How
There you go.
how incredible! Oh, I just saw the boom on the webcast stream over here. How incredible was that? I mean, the build up. Obviously, Saturday morning let's see. Saturday morning we didn't actually have to get up out of bed. I woke up at 5. Oh, did you drive over? Or were you already here?
I had my alarm set for about 5 o'clock in the morning to head over. I was gonna make it just like last second.
Mm-hmm.
And first thing I did was turn on Twitter to look and see what the notifications were, and I had the notification from SpaceX waiting saying they were going to slip it, and I was like, I'm going right back to sleep.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
That's what I did.
That's how it worked for me. I woke up. I don't even know. I think I beat my alarm, which never happens. But I don't know if you guys are like me, but if I wake up in the middle of the night, I usually will roll over and just look at Twitter just to see if there's anything interesting.
Well, I'm the opposite. I wake up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom.
Or you can combine the two,
guilty
go
of
to the
that.
bathroom and check Twitter.
Right. Yeah. And I was just looking at Twitter, just kind of scrolling, just seeing if anybody. Obviously, I looked at SpaceX's feed first, and there was nothing there. And I just was looking. Sometimes you'll have people like Michael Baylor or Chris G or some of these people will kind of get a tip off, and they'll know. So I'm kind of looking, and all of a sudden it's like tweet from SpaceX, bam. Go back to sleep.
Listen, that was the only thing preventing me from driving over to the coast today for remote setup. Was everyone's like, "Oh, I think it might slip to the 27th,"
Right.
because I was getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was. It's actually good now that it's slipped because I was not going to get to set remotes because all working man's got to work. I had already kind of tried to move. I had already moved the schedule around. This week, I worked Monday in hopes that Starlink was going to launch either Tuesday or Wednesday, and then of course that got scrubbed. And it's tough, y'all. Anybody out there that's not close to this and maybe doesn't live on the Space Coast, or you're not a photographer yourself, most of these people have day jobs, which is a big misconception. Was a misconception of mine when I still lived in Tennessee. I just assume all these photographers are doing it full time. they're just rolling in dough from all these remote pad shots and everything. They're just selling prints and stuff. And
It's not like the 60s.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. So we were talking before the show. You're over in Clearwater.
Clearwater,
Yeah.
Clearwater, Florida. Yep.
I have. I've been to Clearwater Beach one time, and that was a that was a fun night. But we won't talk about that.
Oh man,
Oh,
it's
Good
the
to hear
beaches
about
here
that.
aren't all they're hyped up to be. That's for sure.
Yeah. So Hover Slam. Let's talk about that. Actually, you know what? No. I told you that I was going to do this at the beginning of the show. I always like to ask our guests why space and not something else. Football, politics, tennis. I don't know. You might be into those things too. But
Bowling.
what is it about space?
All right, so this story goes back to when I was 5 years old, and I promise you that wasn't last year. I'm 19. So when I was 5, my family, I grew up in a military family, didn't have a whole lot of aviation background to them or anything, no rocket scientists in the family or anything like that. But in 2005, just after a couple years after the Columbia disaster,
Mm-hmm.
Space Shuttle Discovery was getting ready to launch on its return to flight mission.
Okay.
And my whole family at the time was gathered in my living room getting ready to watch the space shuttle launch.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually, at the time, 5 years old. I was in my room playing with this little styrofoam airplane, the big glider ones that they had.
Oh, yeah. They fling back and hit you in the back of the head.
Yes. And I came out in the living room just to see what was going on. And I saw the space shuttle sitting on pad 39A getting ready to go. And I was like, what is that? It looks like an airplane, but it's standing up on its tail.
Right.
What's going on? And my parents were like, it's not a plane, it's a rocket, and there's astronauts in it, and they're getting ready to go to space, go back into orbit and build the space station. And I was just like, okay, so that's a movie, right? It's like a sci-fi movie. And they were like, no, it's happening for real, like just a couple hours from here. And I was like, so they're filming the movie a couple hours from here? It didn't
Is
make
Tom
sense.
Cruise in it?
You were like a little flat
Right.
earther.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Frank, it's staged.
Yes. Bruce Willis is in the rocket. So no, I it just wasn't processing. And then liftoff happened, and it cleared the pad, and I was like, all right, that's really cool looking. I dig it. And my dad goes, hey, bud, come here. And we stepped right out into the backyard, and about a minute or two after liftoff, was able to see it
Nice.
from my backyard going to space. And I was like, no, that's real. That's right there. That's happening.
Yeah.
And immediately went back into my room after everything happened, and turned the styrofoam airplane upright, and all of a sudden the plane became a space shuttle, and I wanted to be an astronaut.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that fire has not died since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I've always had a
Awesome.
passion for aerospace. I'm an aspiring pilot.
Oh,
In
really?
real life. Yeah, I'm trying to get my private pilot's license.
Ah, I'm so jealous.
And then got into photography probably about 4 years ago now.
Uh-huh.
I've been into photography since I was a kid. Got my
Right.
first camera when I was like 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
When you do get your license and you ever fly over here, it's actually real easy to fly over the old shuttle runway.
That's what I've heard.
All you
That's
do
what
is
I've
just
heard.
radio and ask. I did it a couple months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And they just let you fly right over. You just, as long as there's nothing going on,
I
you're
gotta
just like,
get
okay,
that.
they'll tell you how far to go over top of it.
Yeah.
That's,
Very cool.
yeah, that's pretty
But
neat.
yeah, I got my first camera when I was like 10 years old, and
And what
then
was it?
upgraded to. It was a Fujifilm point and shoot. It had
Oh.
like 100 millimeters of zoom on it,
Yeah.
focal length,
Uh-huh.
and then upgraded to a DSLR when I started working professionally as a photographer.
Mhm.
I got my first photography job at 16 years old.
Oh, really? Doing what?
Yeah. I was actually a photographer at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium here.
Mhm.
And I did guest photos and photos of the animals and marketing and stuff like that. And then our company had another account over at the zoo where I did some work there as well. And then just started my own.
That seems kind of neat because, like,
Yeah.
people always are like, "Oh, hey, a good photographer, you ought to, do weddings or do portraits." I'm like, I don't do people, but
Yeah.
like animals are like that sounds really cool. We'll have to talk. How do you get into that stuff? I need to,
Yeah.
I need to know.
Just go to the zoo and start taking pictures, Steve. Jeez.
Well,
Yeah.
and then who do you sell them to?
Right.
Well,
No, I got real lucky. And then kind of once Falcon Heavy slipped back around because I had been over to the Space Coast a couple of times for
Mhm.
shuttle launches when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The last one I actually went to was 135, the last
Oh,
Atlantis
okay.
launch.
Yep.
But obviously, since that launch, I hadn't been over back to the coast for any of the Falcons or anything, and hadn't really been super paying attention to what was going on because I was at school and all that.
Yeah.
But
Like
then,
most Floridians.
right,
Do you
right.
happen? You don't happen to have any photos from that you could show us, do you? From that
Oh, I don't.
Atlantis flight?
I have not from 135, but I actually the first shuttle I ever went and saw in person
Uh-huh.
was STS 117.
Okay.
And I've actually, at the time, I had a family member that worked at NASA, and they got me seats to the
The gantry.
Banana Creek viewing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And I've got my mission patch.
Oh,
from that
nice.
still.
Wow.
117.
Heck yeah.
That's
So-
a collector's indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, Falcon Heavy came rolling around, and the hype from that was huge. Probably about 6 months prior to launch, I started kind of dipping my toes back into the aerospace community and was following everybody I possibly could and consuming as much content as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Just to throw out a couple names, I'll say, Everyday Astronaut, John Krause, Scott Manley, Vintage Space, Emery Kelly, just all the big names. I was like consuming as much content as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And once Falcon Heavy got off and I saw the pictures from that, and I my point and shoot at the time with me, but not my DSLR. And I had taken pictures of the launch. I was like, I want to keep doing this.
Mhm.
So brought my DSLR with me to the next launch and tried to make it over to the Space Coast for every launch I possibly could after that. And it just kind of rapidly evolved into I want to make rocket photography a career. So
Yeah, man, you got your media pass actually pretty quick then.
Pretty quick, yeah.
Like I didn't realize like when you started talking about Falcon Heavy, I was like, dang, that was your first. And then you said you didn't even actually shoot that. So your first, what was your first one coming over here to shoot like with a real DSLR and
So yeah, I shot Falcon Heavy with my little point and shoot camera. Got some just like really crappy pictures of it, and then
wait,
CRS
the demo one you shot.
the demo.
Oh,
the
okay.
demo,
I thought you were
yeah.
saying that you weren't here for it. You're saying you took photos, but you saw other people's, and
It was really other people's like shots from the pad, like Ryan Bales,
Mhm.
Eric Coons, John Crassus, those guys.
Yeah.
Seeing those photos pop up on my feed, it was like, oh, so launch photography is actually a thing. Like that's a thing that people do.
Right.
And I was like, and I want to do that. So
if nothing else, just to get close to the thing,
Right,
like when it's sitting there on the pad, that is so cool. I mean,
because I was still kind of fair at 18. I was doing the DSLR thing and I was working, but I was like, remote cameras, that seems like a really cool aspect of photography I haven't played around with yet.
mhm.
Me neither.
So yeah. So I took my first DSLR, or I took my DSLR to the first launch was CRS 14
Mhm.
and started working on shooting launches from Port Canaveral back when 401 was still open right in front of the Air Force Station before they put the roadblocks out. That was my little go-to spot.
Yep. And you can still shoot from there, but you just got to get there early.
You gotta get to the bleachers and everything. But yeah, started shooting amateur launches and kind of just worked at it as much as I could and started HoverSlam photography before it was HoverSlamSpace.com.
Mhm.
I started HoverSlam photography, which is now the photography aspect of the business.
Right.
Back in February of 2019, I applied to my first NASA social in April of that year, of last year, which is for CRS 17.
Mhm.
Went and shot that under HoverSlam photography, and immediately after that, being involved with the media activities on the NASA social level,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I want to start a media website. I want to cover the breaking news. I want to do the things that all these people in my feed that I keep seeing. I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And that's where HoverSlamSpace.com stepped into the picture,
Right.
and pretty quickly things just kind of started going right.
Yeah.
I got media credentials. First mission was AMO 17.
Oh, the
Was able to go out
one
and
we
shoot
didn't
that.
even get to didn't even
There
get to
was no
set.
remotes.
Yeah, didn't
Yeah.
get to set remotes.
Right, and then like literally the next day was set up for AEHF 5, the Atlas 5.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
that was
it
my
was like
first time
bam,
at
bam. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, me
That was my
and
first
Matt were
time.
in the ULA social for that one, and
I remember.
that was like, I was sure that we weren't going to get the set remotes. I had already set remotes one time before. I think it was just one time before for STP2 Falcon Heavy, And then I caught wind that I think it was Adrian or Michael Caine or both. I heard that they were going to be allowed to set remotes during the social, and I'm like, whoa! I need in on this.
Right, like-
I gotta go.
Like,
I gotta
hold on,
go.
Stop.
Wait.
What?
Well, I was already friends with Adrian and Michael at the time, so when I saw them out there, I was like, "Oh, that's cool. The social guys are out here."
Yeah.
And Steve, I hadn't met you yet, but
Right.
we were following each other on Twitter at the time,
Right.
and I had seen your STP2 pictures. So when I saw you out there, I was like, "Bro." And that was the first day I met you. I was like, "Bro, those Falcon Heavy pictures were
Yeah.
legit."
The streak shot
And,
was good, but not my pad shot. My pad shot was all covered in dew. The lens was because
Listen, for being covered in dew, I thought it was still a legit shot.
Oh, cool.
So.
Thanks. Yeah, that one I actually have on my Smug Mug page, but you wouldn't find it if you go there because I have it hidden. It's just
Yeah.
It's like
I've-
nobody wants to buy that.
I've done that a few times where I've posted something and been like, no, that's
Yeah,
not
I just
right.
I want to put them all up there, but there's a couple I might just want to hide.
Yeah, I had to work to get those JCSat remote pictures
Mhm.
like usable to go on the site because
Really?
I had the same problem.
Yeah.
So they didn't put the hand warmers on the lens.
That was yep, that was my first time out. That was what it was. I was in such a hurry and so nervous, and we had 30 minutes at the spot that I set because at 39A, and a lot of people don't know this, but they have like 5, I think, different spots that they allow the photographers to set up at, and they give you
Right.
different amounts. It's like some spots you got like 10 minutes, some spots you got like 15 or 20 minutes, but this particular spot, which was part of the reason I chose it, we had 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, I've got plenty of time. And like a fool, someone had already told me, set up as much as you can, get as far ahead on your setup as possible. That way, when you're out there, you don't have as much to do. And I was like, well, I'll wait till we get out there to put my hand warmers on, and I won't forget, or but then
Yep.
when you're doing it, especially that first time, like now it's a little, it's my nerves are a little calmer. I'm aware of the time. In fact, I've started as soon as the bus stops and they say you've got 30 minutes. I tell Siri to start a timer for 25 minutes, so
Yep.
that it'll go off and I'll know that I've got 5 minutes left. But yeah, man, that first time out there was just. I was a ball of nerves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you remember for the last Delta 4 medium when we were out at 37B, I had the same mistake. I had already set my first remote camera up for Atlas 5, and that went off without a hitch, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
But then Delta 4 came around, and I was like, I got this in the bag. I'm like, I can do this no problem. Didn't follow anybody's tips about getting everything ready before we went out there.
Yep.
And I decided to wait till the last stop to go and set up my camera. And I don't know if you remember this, but I had to set everything up within like 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, they didn't give you any time.
Nothing. The remote wasn't working. The tripod wasn't standing up. And we came around the next day, and because I had laid everything out so half-assed, we came around the bus, and my camera wasn't standing up, and I was like, "It's gone! It's in the water!"
Yeah.
But it had just caught in the grass, and nothing was harmed, thankfully.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, yeah. So.
Yeah, remote is really fun. Me and Matt talk about this. He's looking forward to getting out there for the first time, and he's ready to go. He's approved, and he'll get the media schedule and stuff like that. But with work, it's hard, obviously. So he's waiting for the weekend launch. Like he was looking forward to Starlink slip into Saturday, so he'd be able to go out there.
Yeah.
Be
out there, drop and pick up, man.
Right. But it is super nerve-wracking, and there not enough can be said about practicing your setup. Obviously get as much setup as possible, but like I didn't do this, but I was talking to Julia, or maybe it was just a tweet I saw of hers or something, but her first time setting a remote, she timed herself the night before doing the setup, and that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like you can't obscure even the smallest details. Like I mentioned with the JCSat pictures, where I kind of had to deal with trying to recover those pictures a little bit. My logic was I don't need hand warmers because launch is in. We had 5 hours till launch at that point. I was like, the cameras are going to be out here for 5 hours until launch. It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But then what it was is locks, because of the wind direction, started going all over the cameras.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. And so the hand warmers weren't there to let the locks drip off to the point where it wasn't on the lens.
Right.
And so leftover locks just kind of blurred them up a little
That's
bit.
interesting. Yeah, because I think
Yeah.
mine ended up with a little bit of something on the lens too, and I was like, well, I had a hand warmer on it, but it wasn't enough.
So
Um, well, I say we talk about in-flight abort.
that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So we saw you up at Max Brewer, right?
Did.
And
Yep.
man, it was packed. Like the bridge itself, it didn't feel all that packed. I was actually hoping for a little more because of the cloud cover. I'm like thinking, what can I get that's usable if I'm not able to actually see the abort and the subsequent explosion and stuff? What can I get? And I'm thinking, well, if we get a bunch of people lining the rail here, maybe a nice wide shot, you can see liftoff on the right side and you see all these people. I always like to put people in the, see people enjoying the launch, but there wasn't really enough people. Maybe if it had actually, gotten close enough, maybe the people would. But there were so many cars. Just, oh man, there was a lot of people out there.
I was the last time I had been to Max Brewer was for the Falcon Heavy demo when I went over there for the first time in a long time, and that bridge was, shoulder to shoulder packed.
Yeah.
So I was anticipating a little bit less than that, but I was pretty happy with the amount of people that were out there.
Yeah.
It was a good amount, sure.
Yeah, and you got to stick around for the whole time. We were out there, so our deal was, I had to work at 11, and so I was like, all right, if it goes at 8, great. If it goes at 10, because we knew traffic was going to be kind of bad, but it's like, it's fine. If my boss was there, Becca, by the way, who's not here tonight because she's the boss and she's working all the time. She was with me. You know what I mean? So It's like, it's all good. But then when they pushed it to 10:30, it was like, well, that's my cue. But we knew that we'd be able to go down to the beach and watch it, and of course Matt had prior engagements with his son and so whatever. But I think that you may have had the best perspective because you got that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got that break in the clouds right there. Well, yeah, talk us through it. Go for it.
Yeah, I think like everybody else, I was my head was on a swivel looking at the weather incoming and thinking that it wasn't looking good. I was actually under the impression that it was probably going to slip until the next day, and luckily it didn't, and we got cleared for liftoff and it cleared the pad. And
they had even said, like in the press briefings, like that that weather is weather is weather, but this is different. We need the visibility too.
Right. So I was surprised. I was surprised with the amount of clouds. I was like, from our perspective, there's a good amount of cloud coverage, but there has to be some needle thread over 39A if they're going to go ahead and let it go.
Right.
And so liftoff happened. Got some good shots of it clearing the pad. Some decent shots. I was tracking it as it was going up, and about, I would say, 40 seconds into flight, it just disappeared behind those clouds. And I took my camera down because I was just tracking it handheld at the time. I took my camera down and I was like, it's going to go behind the clouds. We're not going to be able to see any of it. This is going to suck. And then I saw this little itty bitty clearing, and it's actually in the pictures. You can see the clearing. And I was like, but if it pops out right above that clearing, I need to be ready. So I brought the camera right back up. And as soon as I did, I heard everybody scream abort, and I saw Dragon pop right up through that little coverage. I was tracking what I thought was the booster, and it was. And then the thing that surprised me the most out of all this was how much of the viewfinder the explosion actually took up.
Yeah.
Because it just like this little itty bitty, like maybe 10 pixels across the booster at the time. All of a sudden the explosion just took up, boom, the whole viewfinder. And I was it was like again watching a movie. It was crazy.
Yeah, you guys watching in chat. So I'm here. I'll share the screen so you guys can see what I'm doing.
30 minutes, man. I should have waited 30 freaking minutes, man.
I'm sorry, man.
So one of these is the second stage. Like I think. I don't know.
So
it might be
right where your mouth is.
Is it this right here?
That's the second stage.
Yeah. So that's the second stage, and you've seen pictures. If you've never been close to the Falcon 9, you've at least seen pictures of people standing next to it, and kind of how big it is. Now look at the Fireball with that in mind. This thing is truly massive. I mean, it's got to be like the size of a stadium or something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible.
I wonder what the second stage was thinking when it got out of that live.
Like, what?
Until it fell out, and then wait, gravity's kicking in.
Yeah, this is bad. Yeah, and actually, when I first saw my pictures, I thought that the thing, because mine, actually, I'm a dummy. I didn't pull mine up, but I'm on a different perspective. I ended up, like I said before, we ended up going down to the beach, which I'm meeting.
Yeah, where were you guys at?
Cocoa Beach. We were just a few blocks north of the pier.
Okay.
I'm trying to find.
I was over on 405 by the old Astronaut Hall of Fame, and all I saw was clouds. But I got a good shot. Next, I don't know if Steve has got it there or not, but I got a pretty good shot of the rocket going up right next to the VAB.
I did see that. Angle. Yeah, that was cool.
And that was all I got. The rest of it was all clouds, and then I heard the explosion. And that was my day.
I'm trying to scroll here. Well, I'll settle for this one here. Yeah, so I thought that this right here, at the point of the explosion, by the way, viewers, this obviously is not just one explosion. This is all of my shots stacked. But I thought this was Dragon, because when you're watching from the beach and it was so cloudy and so hazy, it was kind of hard to tell what was going on. So I thought that this was Dragon out in front of the explosion, but Dragon was long gone.
Which surprised me. Yeah, which surprised me how quickly it really did. They said it created like a mile of distance within a matter of like 4 seconds or something like that. I was like, no way.
Yeah, it was definitely out of there. I could tell that the engines shut down. That part I could see. So I don't know. It was just so tough. As you can see from my photos, like I tried to recover these, and this is the best I could do without it becoming just a sloppy, grainy mess. Because although I did have a break in the clouds, it wasn't like a hole. Like Brandon got the hole. He had a nice.
I got so lucky. Yeah,
you got a nice clear hole right there. I want to talk about. It's kind of. I mean, it's still in the same subject, but I want to talk about there's been some confusion about how the abort worked. What triggered it? I've heard a lot of people say that, they blew it up, like somebody hit a button, or, did they hit a button to make the abort happen? So the way I understand it is they programmed Falcon 9 to shut down its engines at 84 seconds, which is around the time of max Q. They actually had already entered max Q. They made the call out on the webcast that they had entered max Q, and it was a few seconds after that. And Falcon 9 had been pre-programmed to shut its engines down. Now, nobody told Dragon, okay? Nobody told Dragon that this was happening. So the part of the test was to make sure that Dragon would recognize that there was a loss of thrust and trigger an abort. So the shutting down of the engines was the indicator for Dragon to be like, oh something's wrong, gotta go. And if you read some of the reports, like up to like whenever they said there was some, I don't know, press releases or whatever that were explaining it, they mention how at like right before Dragon departs, it triggers for the engines to shut down. And I think that that is where a little bit of the confusion came in. But I think what they were saying is during a normal abort situation, the last thing Dragon is supposed to do before it detaches is to command Falcon 9 to shut down, just in case, no matter what type of an abort it is. In this case, the engines were already shut down, but in the future, in another, hopefully we never have to see this again, but in another abort scenario, that might not be the case. The engines might still be firing. So the last thing Dragon is supposed to do is say, hey, Falcon 9, shut down. I got to go.
Right.
And so that's kind of the order of things as far as I've understood it. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and Everyday Astronaut was trying to get them to just spell it out at the press briefing, but they kind of, And it was Elon
tiptoed
telling
around
it. I don't know if he was doing it intentionally, or is it one of those situations where you're talking as if the person you're talking to already kind of has the same knowledge you do, so you're kind of speaking in shorthand or whatever. But it still wasn't 100% clear. I think it was Scott Manley that explained it the best, and that was basically what I just told you. And
Right.
so and also that Falcon 9 was not detonated. So the engines are shut down, Dragon is gone. Obviously, it's lost its nice little point. And the fact that the engines are shut down, it has no way to control itself, because that's how rockets control themselves. They can gimbal the engine and point them whichever direction to keep themselves straight. So there's it's not aerodynamically sound, and it doesn't have the engines to control it. And so it gradually starts to tip, sideways to the air, and then it happens so fast. Like I would love to see some really good high-speed footage and see what broke first.
Yeah.
Because you can tell it's sideways, and then it's like boom.
Yeah, and that was one thing you could definitely tell, at least watching it from my perspective, was the aerodynamic breakup of the booster is what caused that fireball. Because just tracking it through the viewfinder, you're still able to see it enough to the point, just as Falcon and Dragon made that clearing through the clouds. Once Dragon separated, you could tell that the first stage was on an off nominal trajectory at that point, and actually started to curve, as it did in the webcast as well. You could see it, but actually started to kind of. It looked like the interstage was almost catching airflow, and the weight of the engines was kind of coming up above the interstage.
Oh yeah.
And that maneuver, that maneuver at that high velocity and high of an altitude, kind of looked like what ruptured it.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of breakdowns of the LOX tank rupturing and mixing with the RP1, which all adds up from everything I saw.
Right. And I really liked Chris G's line of questioning about, why not use the AFTS, because they were saying that the AFTS is going to be armed, but why are, he's like, well, why is it, because this is an abort situation, or off nominal, so why is it going to be used? And I think what I took away from it was, and a lot of discussion I've seen on Twitter and Reddit and stuff afterwards, is that the AFTS, which is the automatic flight termination system, that's to save the public. So only if the rocket veers off its trajectory a certain amount and starts like going towards people, that's when the AFTS is supposed to trigger, not when there's an abort scenario and it's just going to continue on a ballistic trajectory and then just fall in the ocean because there's nobody there, right?
Right.
So that's why the AFTS wasn't used in this situation.
Which that answer seems to make sense, especially in the scenario where you're talking about crew riding on top of the vehicle, and you wouldn't want the AFTS detonating at a point in time where Dragon wouldn't have enough time to escape.
That's true, yeah.
But to the point of the line of questioning that Chris G had, which I thought was awesome. Listening to the press conference, he was very precise in the way he was answering those questions. I think the NASA representatives and the SpaceX representatives were not particularly clear in the way that they were giving answers. I don't think they were trying to hide transparency from anyone, but it was kind of like you said earlier. It's like they were under the impression that everyone they were talking to already knew what they were talking about.
Right. And I also think that maybe NASA and SpaceX aren't real fond of bringing too much attention to the explosion. Like if you notice, like what's her name, Kathy Loiter, I think. She just referred to it as, this should be a very exciting launch, and we don't like to use the word exciting, with launches, but this should be an exciting one. Like they don't like to talk about stuff, and I think I understand why, it's kind of like a PR thing, because
it's understandable.
Anybody that's not into this stuff might see these pictures. Exciting. What's that?
Right.
I said it was pretty exciting.
It was, yeah. But anybody that's not into this stuff, and especially those that are like critical of NASA, and they think that because there are lots of people out there that they're like, why are we going to space, and we don't need this stuff, and fix the problems on the ground, and that sort of mentality, they might see this and think that NASA's just having fun, they're just out there just blowing up rockets for no good reason. Like
Which I think is why that point in particular is especially why it's so important to actually talk about the explosion of the booster itself.
Yeah.
Because talking about the booster explosion further understands our knowledge of what scenarios are possible in an actual abort sequence and how that it would affect the astronauts and the actual liabilities that we have on top of that rocket.
Right.
So from a PR perspective, it's understandable where they were coming from for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's equally as important to talk about that aspect of the test because there's a reason that it happened for the test.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you got people that freak out.
Yeah.
Right.
And they go, "Why are they wasting money?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. There were the people that were like, well, and they were saying like the same people that are cheering on this test are the same people that think that global warming's a problem, and like think about all the hydrocarbons they just put in. It's like you have no perspective.
Zero.
Yeah.
None.
I had I had posted my photo to the subreddit, the SpaceX subreddit. And it was doing very well. I was getting a lot of supportive comments and stuff. And then this one person commented on it like it ultimately got deleted. So I can't like read it verbatim, but it was like, this right here is the reason the internet is not into this stuff, or something along those lines. It's like, look, here's a guy who just posted this photo for some internet points. This super cropped in, noisy, terrible photo just to get some internet points. And my first thought was like, I barely cropped this, by the way. and then
on Reddit.
Yeah, it was on Reddit. And I wanted to explain, like, you have no idea what it took to get this, because it was so hazy and stuff. And so I knew whenever I knew it was going to be noisy, and I hate noise. I really, really do. Like, it's a constant struggle because you want to get that perfect exposure so that when you're taking the photo, so that you don't have to do crazy things to it in Lightroom, because all those things that you do to it potentially add extra noise and grain to your photo. But it's just.
Did you ever respond to him?
I did.
All you had to say was, "Let me see your photo."
Right. Well, yeah.
That's all you had to say.
Well, so he said whatever it was super critical, and I said either that or I'm so into space that I uprooted my life so that I could be close to him, and you're just a cynical nitwit.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
But ultimately, the mods deleted his and mine, and then I got the little notification. It was like, yeah, it was deleted, and here's why, or whatever. And then I responded to that. I was like, that's totally cool. I in hindsight, I wish I had responded differently, and but they were like, yeah, we're glad you understand. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about what. I asked you if you were cool with showing your RAWs on the screen, and what it took to pull this out. And viewers, you're actually going to be pretty surprised. These are not too far off from what those RAWs were. When he pulled them up on the screen earlier, I was like, wow, he had so much more to work with than I did. You really, I mean, your exposure was right, and you had that hole in the clouds, and
I mean, like, everything kind of fell perfectly into order. I cannot express there's skill behind doing the rocket photography, but a lot of it is sheer amount of luck, and this was just luck all the way through.
Well, you were saying before that you were exposed for engines, right? Like
for engines, anytime I shoot a rocket, I try to underexpose for engine brightness, because you can just never tell the way the light's going to interact, especially with the way weather changes and the way light interacts with the things around you. So I always, just as a precaution, like to underexpose, and not being able to anticipate the brightness of the flash of the explosion if there was going to be any. Mm-hmm. That's really, I kind of found a safe spot and rolled with it there.
Yeah. Pull up your. See, I'm going to rearrange some things here on OBS so that I'm gonna blow this up so that the viewers can see it. Hey, there's me.
There you are.
Oh.
All right.
So why don't you, Brandon, if since there's a lot of people who are watching right now, kind of give them a little
whoops.
play-by-play about your settings, like what was your f-stop, what was your ISO, what was your shutter speed, so they can kind of get more of an understanding about what
If you're
settings
okay
they need
with
to-
sharing that, sometimes people
Right.
don't like to share that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no worries. I think settings isn't really that big a deal. I think what it comes down to is creativity and
Exactly.
composition. So it's
Also,
not that big a deal.
everything you take every time is different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So yeah, I've got the first shot of the explosion here pulled up.
Yeah.
You can see the shot before. That was actually the first stage right here. Still kind of on its trajectory, and then that's the first shot of breakup that I have. My settings. Let's see if I can pull them up.
If you just take your mouse off the picture, yeah, ISO 125, f 6.3, and 1/2000.
Yeah, So I usually shoot on a really high shutter, especially if I'm tracking handheld. So
yeah, because
2000.
the reason, viewers, is because as your hand is moving, and obviously you're shooting a moving target, you want that really fast shutter so that
Right.
it freezes everything. You don't get that motion blur.
Right.
Yep.
I had aperture at 6.3 because I had enough light blocked off through that shutter, that high shutter speed to be able to shoot on a little bit of a rolled back aperture, especially shooting with the 600 lens. That's the lowest aperture there, or the fastest aperture that I'll shoot at.
Right.
And then ISO I was at 125 just to bring a little detail, or not a little detail, a little light into the foreground for the liftoff shots. Because from Max Brewer 39A, you have that perfect view of the whole swamp there, the tree lines.
Right.
So that's why that ISO is at 125. Normally, I'd have that rolled back to 100. But yeah, so this is the raw shot. This is completely out of camera. Do you want me to go ahead and walk them through?
Yeah. Show them how you ended up with what you got.
Sure. So I've had a lot of people ask me over the past couple of days on my posts about how exactly I kind of got my shots the way they were, and I think Steve, even you were a little surprised when I told you.
Yeah.
A lot of it was actually bringing light back and then just rolling back the blacks. So what I actually did was I started over on exposure and brought the exposure down just slightly to kind of bring in some more of those details. Brought in contrast just to make it pop a little bit, not too much, just taking it easy. And then actually go ahead and throw in the highlights just to make the orange of the explosion, the fireball pop.
Right.
And I really when I edit, just like I do with my focal points, I shoot with on the 6D Mark II. There's different focal point settings, and I shoot on the minimal focal point setting, so it's one.
Yeah, one right in the middle.
Point.
That's me
Right.
too. I don't need all these focal points. Like, give me one.
Yeah, I'm not shooting a mountain. I'm shooting one particular thing in the shot. You know what I mean? So luckily I was right on point with this. So I always edit right there at the focal point. Drop the shadows and brought in the whites just a little bit. So that's probably a little too much.
Yeah.
And then started rolling back the blacks, and you can see once you start bringing in the blacks,
really
those colors really start to pop.
Yeah.
And I'll probably bring up the shadows on this just a little bit and make this where the shadow is being cast to make that pop just a little bit. And then from there, you can already start to see that's kind of what my final images started to turn out like.
Yeah.
From there, it's really just adding personal flair, texture, bringing in. I think I did very little clarity, and was more focused on the texture of bringing out what the actual gas expansion at that point looked like.
Yeah.
A little bit of dehaze just to bring up the vibrance a little bit, and then actually tuning up the vibrance, making those colors pop.
Oh, how'd you get that dehaze in the presence section? Is that part of the update? Because on mine, it's like all the way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 2020 update's pretty good.
Yeah.
It makes things a lot easier.
Right.
And then from there, really just playing with the colors and the light and the crop, and I didn't really have to crop all that much. Like I said, I was very surprised by how much of the viewfinder it took up.
Right.
Especially once you start a little bit of crop on that shot there. But once you start getting into the later shots, like let's look at this a little too far. So we'll look at the big fireball, which was right about there.
Yeah.
You can tell. I mean, that's
It's where it's got a little
Well,
crown.
it's easily going to be like 30% of the viewfinder that it took up, and it was like a flower blossoming. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, just going through and doing similar things, bringing in the highlights a little bit, dropping the shadows back, popping the whites, dropping the blacks.
Yeah, it's dropping those blacks. That's what really starts to get it there, isn't it?
That's what really starts to make it pop, right? And just bringing in a little bit of flare. I actually did bring the luminescence up on the blues just a little bit. That way it didn't completely look like daytime.
Mm-hmm.
And then where that natural vignette just kind of started to come in from
that was kind of neat how it did that.
I liked it, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
So on a lot of the shots, I think it's there on a couple where I kind of made them like wide banner shots like this, but a lot where I was trying to kind of focus on the fireball and make it the center point of the subject. I add a little bit of post vignette in there, and yeah, I mean, just editing is it's a really easy process. Kind of like once you get down with it, you kind of feel what your sweet spot is, and you start to edit your pictures kind of the same way a lot of the times. And so I kind of did my normal process, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like it has the ability to like save those presets, and I never use them. I just kind of know what I do to most photos.
I never use presets.
And it's really, just using a little bit of this, and you never go too crazy on anything, unless it calls for it. But when you're first starting out editing a photo, you just kind of take everything slow, just bump it up to like the max I'll go on anything first pass will be like 20, maybe 30. And and just don't go too crazy first pass, and then if you need to, once you've got all your little sliders in their positions, then you can kind of start messing with certain things and take them a little further.
Yeah, and what I always like to do in the editing process is, and actually me and my friend Dustin Smith, who actually, shout out to Dustin Smith, he just did a great job with my new logo design for Hoverslam Photography and Hoverslam Space.
Right.
We were going back and forth and talking about kind of our creative processes, him as a graphic designer, me as a photographer. And one thing that we shared in common was we release kind of the first edit of our product. Me and him kind of do a similar technique where we edit something, we work on it for a couple hours, and then we sleep on it, and then next day we come back and say, all right, how does this look with a fresh set of eyes?
Right.
And that's what I ended up doing with the IFA shots.
That looks so
the
good
ones
zoomed
that,
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things like we've talked about too, is like and of course I kind of broke my own rule, and I don't know if Matt was like itching to call me out on it, but like with in-flight abort, I did post my edit from my phone, but it was kind of a different scenario because I knew that I didn't have a whole lot to work with, because I saw the raw and there wasn't a whole lot there. And then it was definitely one of those, this thing is, everybody's looking and everybody's wanting to see the content come out and stuff. And I had to go straight to work. So if I was going to, be in that first wave of content, it's like, I just have to accept what I have right now and just roll with it.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you, that's another one of the kind of lucky surprises that came out of IFA. Was I actually a couple months ago invested in an iPad to be able to do just like on the go editing, to get at least like 1 or 2 shots up, just to be like on the first row of people putting out content.
Right.
Just kind of stay relevant. And so like I have been for the past few launches, that's what I did. Is I just immediately after all the main events and kind of after the live stream stopped, everyone was kind of leaving the bridge and hauling ass, and I sat down and just did I think 1 or 2 edits is what I posted initially.
Yeah. Well, hell, it was going to take an hour to get anywhere away from Titusville anyway.
Exactly.
Oh, if you want to stop sharing your screen, that's cool.
Okay. Yeah. And
yeah, I was just happy that Steve-O shared, like Steve-O got something, because I had to leave. You know what I mean? I had to go. It was me, Steve, all of us. You were there with us,
right?
And so I ended up having to go. So when I saw that he had gotten something, I was like, yes, at least somebody got something.
Well, that was the thing, is I hadn't been on Twitter since since everything happened and I went and edited those pictures, so by the time I got on to drop those first 2 pictures that I had edited, I was kind of scrolling through Twitter, and I was really excited to see our friends who are fellow content creators, a lot of them up on top of the VAB, guys like Trevor Malman with the huge slow-mo setup he had at Jetty Park. I was like, man, these shots are going to be incredible. I want to see what they look like.
Yeah.
And was surprised to just absolutely find nothing. And I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure there's people who drop maybe cell phone pictures, but I think as far as edited media outlet based photography goes for it, I think I was the first one to drop a picture of the explosion, and I was like, no way.
Yeah, no way. Dude, I was just waiting for John Krause to show us how it's done.
Right.
Because I look to him a lot. It's like, okay, well, here's what I managed to do. And, and I've said it before I ever even moved down here, I knew who John Krause was, and his pictures were always awesome. And it's, if you're a photographer, a lot of times you can kind of look at other photographers and kind of maybe try to piece together how in the world they did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's something important to do in any profession, but especially photography is kind of look towards inspiration to drive you on where to go, and then from there kind of understand, all right, how do I add my own personal flair to this?
We've accidentally been kind of ignoring chat because we've been because I had the Hangout screen blown up, but y'all have been talking, and I appreciate y'all getting in there. A lot of this is kind of stuff we were covering earlier. Daryl said that he saw somewhere that the AFTS can also terminate flight in other ways besides detonation, like commanding engine shutdown. I didn't know that. Anyone else read that? Oh, okay. He's not sure about that. He's asking if anybody else saw that or if he's just crazy. Kyle said, Kyle, yeah, what's up, Kyle? He said after in-flight abort, he just went back to his car and pulled out a laptop and went through it for an hour or two. That's so smart, because if you don't have to be anywhere, you don't want to sit in that traffic wishing you could edit your photos. Just break down and just do it.
Right.
We got Jeff in the house. What's up, Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff Barrett, what's going on, man? Yeah, Jeff makes all these awesome infographics for all these launches. I mean, even stuff overseas. So, yeah, probably most of y'all in the chat are already following him, but if you're not, get on it. And speaking of following, make sure you're following Brandon over here. And I've got his Twitter pulled up right here, Brandon H. Slam, and then you've also got Hover Slam Space. That's his news outlet. Let's see. Oh, there's something I wish I could show you guys, but I just don't know if the person that took that video. Did you guys see that video that TJ Cooney that he posted for somebody that I guess isn't on Twitter? But it has for licensing, email, Doug at whatever it is. So when it's worded like that, I'm thinking maybe he wouldn't be okay with me displaying it on here. But you guys definitely go to TJ Cooney's Twitter page. You have to scroll down a little ways. I don't know. He probably posted it on Sunday or Monday or something, but it's not like super slow-mo, he might have shot it in like 60 frames per second or something like that, because it's slow, but it's not like 1,000 frames per second. But it is real good.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's like it almost scratches that itch of where I really wanted to see SpaceX's high-speed foot. And Trevor Malman had the high-speed cameras that company had loaned him to get that great footage, and Everyday Astronaut had a telescope. Was he doing high-speed too, or was it just?
He was doing slow-mo. Yeah.
And he had the high-speed camera hooked up to a telescope, and lost it in the clouds. And so that's, man, all these guys and girls that were out there that were gonna get great shots. I really, really feel bad for them, because I know that they were looking forward to it. They came all this way, and a lot of them aren't locals. They came all this way, and I'm sure they're not that bummed. They still got to see a launch and stuff, but I know they were really looking forward to capturing that footage, and I was looking forward to seeing it, man. Really, like I wasn't expecting to be among, maybe a couple dozen people that actually got a shot of the explosion. I was looking forward to, I was looking forward to learning something because I'd never shot an explosion before. I don't know what, the closest I ever got, and I thought I was going to get one, was, you remember, it was CRS 18, I think, when the booster was coming down to land at LZ1. Lost hydraulic fluid in the grid fins and then ended up ditching in the ocean. Was that 18? I think it was.
That was 15, I think.
No, not 15. 15 was the one that did the twilight effect. Well, anyway, whichever one it was, that ditched in the ocean. Because I was watching from Exploration Tower, and so it hit, it landed, but then I saw it start to fall over, and I thought I was about to see an explosion for the first time. But but yeah, I was taking this as this is going to be a learning experience. I'll probably never get this opportunity again, but still, like, wonder what it takes to shoot an explosion. I don't know.
Yeah, 16 by the way.
What? Oh,
CRS 16. Yeah,
okay.
16.
Yeah, thank you.
Chat room chimed in there.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah.
chat.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate that.
I was on 401 for that launch.
So
it looked like it landed from where I was.
Exactly.
It looked like it landed. They went right behind the trees, and then they were like, "Oh, it landed in the ocean." I was like, "What?"
Yeah. Even from Exploration Tower, I couldn't tell. I thought it was on land.
And just slowly fell over.
Yeah.
It was cold that day too.
Yeah.
Really cold.
Windy.
That was one of the only launches within probably the past year or two that I wasn't able to make it over for, and then was sitting there watching the live stream like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's such a weird bummer that happened. I really, and I told all these people that I work with, like, I'm that annoying guy. Like, I'm like an evangelist, but for rockets. Like constantly like knocking on your door. Are you gonna watch the launch? You're gonna watch the launch. But this was one. It's like, hey, do you want to see one blow up and it's okay?
I was just telling you, I was doing the same thing. Even to customers too. I was like, hey, if you're not doing anything on Saturday,
yeah. And then part of the pitch was, the criteria is it has to be clear. So you're definitely going to get to see it. All you got to do is go outside.
Right.
Oh, promises from this guy.
Promises.
I know, man.
How many people were like, that guy?
Yeah.
Right?
He's wrong on this.
He's always lying to us. And it's like, and man, I'm actually, I'm batting 1,000 here because what was it? A month ago or a month and a half ago, there was that meteor storm that was supposed to happen.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, you guys, come out to the beach tonight. We're gonna watch this meteor storm. It's only gonna be from like this time to this time. It's like an hour or something like that. Or
Dude, I was in my backyard like a fool trying to take photos. I got nothing.
Yeah, nothing. And it, a lot of it had to do with, we've got light pollution here, and you kind of needed to be somewhere nice and dark, But I built it up, and then a couple people that I work with came out, and we really didn't get to see much. And so I feel like at some point I'm just going to be the boy who cried wolf, and people are just not going to listen to me anymore.
Yeah. But no, like I was. To your point, I was severely disappointed. Like I said, I was severely disappointed that we didn't get those views. Because imagine how crazy that would have looked like photos coming out from guys like John Krause and Richard Engel on top of the VAB.
Well, look at
literally right under it.
Right. Look at the photo that John got of the second stage hitting.
The second stage.
Right. Yeah. I'll pull this up for the folks watching. Yeah, because he got a really good shot of it hitting the water.
Yep.
Let's see. How far back do I gotta go? Oh, well, that's okay. He hasn't tweeted much. That makes it easy. Did he tweet it? Did he not tweet that? Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, so see, he got a good shot. And look, it's noisy because we're all fighting the haze, He had to fight the haze to get this. But still, it looks great. And man, I was talking to some people, which I am wont to do. I'm out on the beach, and it's actually before launch. So there was this group of people walking south for some reason. I don't know why they're walking south and not looking north. And And I knew that it was about a minute. I was like, a minute away. And they're like, what, really? I was like, how do you know that? I was like, the webcast. Like it always befuddles me when people are like, how do you know that? Like the internet, man. It's in your pocket.
Right.
But yeah, so
Exactly.
they stopped and they hung out and they watched it and they got to see the explosion. So they're, that was really cool. And so after that, once we couldn't really see much anymore, I turned around and I was kind of talking to him and explaining what we just witnessed, because they weren't from here. They'd never even seen a rocket launch. And this, me talking about how we're about to see an explosion was really odd to them. And, and the fact that it wasn't a bad thing, so I had to explain all that stuff. One of the ladies said, "Oh, I just saw a flash." And it was the second stage hitting the water, and I missed it. I didn't even get to see. I wouldn't have had my camera up in time, but I could have seen it, And then, like through the haze, when you're right there at sea level, and it was such a hazy day anyway. Like I could see this pillar of smoke rising, but I couldn't tell. Is that just a cloud with a shadow cast on it? Is it kind of a dark cloud, or is that, so I took a couple photos of it and it was indeed the cloud. I took it into Lightroom and, did some of the stuff and was able to look at it and see that it was actually that cloud. But yeah, that lady got to see that. And I kind of almost didn't believe her because I was like, yeah, there's nothing left to go boom. Like I figured that the first or the second stage had blown up with the first stage.
Right.
But yeah, all right. Well, what else is there? What's chat got? Is there anything in chat that we need to address before we start thinking about wrapping it? Oh, DOS. Yes, that's right. I wanted to show, and here I'll show it. I'll share the screen with you guys because I just love DOS's reaction to these things.
DOS he could honestly be like the next Fine Brothers React.
Yeah.
Like for space.
Right.
He's great. I love him.
Here we go. All right.
There! Wow!
Yeah. That's awesome. Just look at the way the second stage went.
It shot keeps going, yeah.
Yeah.
There! Wow!
Yeah, that's the second stage, y'all. The second stage remained intact, which is kind of nuts that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love DOS's videos, man. That's Kerbal Space Academy, y'all. On let's see, I'll show his Twitter just so if anybody's not following him, you definitely should. That's K Space Academy on Twitter.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me look at chat one last time before we think about. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? You got Hover Slam. Everybody go and follow Hover Slam Space. Follow Brandon H Slam is his personal.
That's my personal. Hoverslamspace.com. All your latest in spaceflight news.
Yeah.
I try and update the website every day with something new and try and stay active on Twitter is where I'm most active. So if you want to follow me at Brandon H Slam, like you said. And I try and create content back to kind of what we were talking about earlier. That fire, that passion, that excitement that I felt when I was 5 years old that never died. The reason that I'm really driven to do this in the media community and the photography community is to try and get the rest of the world, the rest of the everyday people who kind of don't pay attention to everything, to try and light that fire in those people. It's those people who are walking on the beach and walking the opposite direction who were like, how did you know that?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of people I want to reach, to be like, what's going on, and get them as nerdy and driven about this kind of portion of society, which I think is super important.
Yeah.
And get them lighted.
If nothing else, to get them where they will vote in favor of NASA things.
Right.
I don't expect that, and Becca, she always gives me a hard time, like, especially last week when I was like harping on everybody, you got to watch In-Flight Abort. You got to, it's gonna be the coolest thing ever. And she, afterwards she'd be like, not everybody is as into it. You can't, you can't expect everyone to be all gung-ho about it. And that's true.
I know that.
That is 100% true. But the goal here, I think, is to get people to understand that it is a really neat thing. It's important for the human race, I think, that we continue our space technology and hopefully, get to the point where people can live and work in space, so that 100 years from now, we have communities living off the planet, so that 500 years from now, when there's an asteroid impact or something, you know what I mean? If there's some cataclysm,
making life a multiplanetary species, I think is one of the most crucial points that we're at as a society right now, that a lot of society doesn't realize that we're at. I think the things that SpaceX and even NASA are doing with Artemis and with Starship and trying to kind of establish us beyond Earth is extremely important, especially at the rate that we're populating the planet and what's going on with climate change. I think these are all very important topics that can be addressed, and hopefully have attention brought to it with the content that we're able to create. And that's really what I love about doing this, is bringing new attention to it. That and the community, because without doing this, I would have met guys. I've met you guys and all my other space friends over on the other coast, and everyone that I'm friends with online, and it's awesome. And all the love that I've had over the past couple of days, especially around the in-flight abort pictures, it's been crazy. It's been wild. I had
on Reddit.
Yeah, not on Reddit. No. I had Amy from Vivid Space actually follow me the other day, and that was like one of the coolest things. That was like the coolest feeling, because I've been watching her for forever.
Right.
And for her to be like, "Yeah, I followed you because your photos are dope, dude. Who wouldn't want those in their feed?" I'm like,
"That's awesome! Yeah, dude, that's so cool."
Yeah. So
that's cool.
It's been a crazy past year since I've really kind of stepped into the community and tried to get attention brought my way, and I'm just hoping to do more, man. It's freaking awesome. I love it.
It's fun. Yeah, and then just being close to rockets is really neat.
That's a pretty cool part too. I mean, like we get to go stand next to a Falcon 9 in a couple of days. Who gets to say that?
Yeah. So I guess we're about wrapping up time. Everybody remember, next week we have Julia.
Big show.
Big show. We have Julia and Gavin from SpaceX Fleet. Not sure. I guess we will have had the Starlink booster probably. Well, maybe come back by then. I don't know, but I mean, I think it's just going to kind of be a nerd out show. Maybe we'll probably end up talking about in-flight abort again, because Julia was out on one of the Starfleet boats, so I'm sure she'll want to talk about that. So if you haven't already,
people got seasick.
Do what? Yeah, I wonder. I did hear
it was still rough. It was still like 4 foot 4.5, and you were shaking on a boat.
Yeah, she was on the boat with I think she was on the boat with Dawson, Michael Caine, and all them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so I want to say there was a boat that had a lot of people that we knew, or at least knew of, on it. So if you haven't already, subscribe, smash that like button.
Oh, there you go. Julia was on the same boat as Doss and Daryl, because Daryl just chimed in.
Okay, cool.
Daryl. This has been super fun, guys.
Yeah, man.
If you ever want me back, I'm down.
Well, I was just gonna say, man, we'll definitely have you back. What we're wanting to do, y'all that are viewing, this is for y'all too. I was actually talking to Harry. I'm pretty sure he's in the chat, and he was saying how he would really like to see more locals. Just like have as often as we can. Because I've made a lot of friends. I've lived here for almost 3 years now, and I've made some friends, and I want to start asking some of these friends to just come and just be on the show. And even if it's, we're not necessarily focused on them the whole time. We're just shooting the stuff, shooting the space stuff. Which reminds me, I really want to see some more of that John Krause and Eric Kuna. collaboration because they have a show called Shooting to Space. But anyway,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, where's that been? That was great.
I actually asked him about it. I asked Eric about it on the bus last time I saw him, and he said he's like, "Yeah, we're still doing it. We've just been really busy." And they had, I don't know, they had one in the can, and I don't know. I can't really speak for him, but there are more coming from them, and I'm looking forward to that too because I learn a lot from those guys.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so tune in next week, and Kiko's gonna play us out. Thanks, chat, for being there. See y'all next week.
Thank you. Yeah.
Shutdown sequence initiated. Shutting down.